I'd like to call the December CPOC meeting to order. Do we have members of the public that are here to provide comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have two public speakers today. Speakers are reminded to retain their face mask in place while they deliver their comments, please. The first speaker is Jason Anthony, who will be followed by Kara Girl.
Welcome, Mr. Anthony.
Good afternoon, Daniel. Speaking today while I took voluntary time off on my mandatory working day in Amazon. So today, on this wonderful CPOC December meeting, let's speak about East Side Access. 1 year from now, we will have Long Island Railroad service arriving to Grand Central. Nice. That's good. But let's not forget stations like East New York and Brooklyn. That is a disgrace. Needs urgently attention. It's a block away from Broadway Junction. It has graffiti. It smells like urine. A lot of things happen there during the night that you guys don't even have idea. So let's invest money in capital construction and let's rehabilitate this wonderful station in Eastern Brooklyn. And I want to ride the first train from Grand Central when East Side Access opens. And I'll see you guys in the diversity meeting.
Thank you. Next speaker is Kara Girl.
Good afternoon. I'm Kara Girl, Research and Communications Associate at the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, PCAC. Between a geyser at 28th Street, torrential downpours at Jefferson Street, and apocalyptic flooding around the system, riders didn't need a report from the comptroller to know that the MTA has a long way to go on resiliency. But the comptroller's report on the capital program reaffirmed what we all already know. Critical investments are needed to keep our transit system in a state of good repair and to ensure safe, reliable, and accessible trips now and into the future. It's promising that MTA leadership has acknowledged the importance of protecting the transit system in the face of climate change and extreme weather, but riders urgently need targeted funding for resiliency capital improvements, not just in the next capital program, but also in the short term before the next Ida or Sandy strikes. A resiliency assessment should be undertaken now, in the context of the regional ecosystem and environment, to determine the best use of scarce resources across interconnecting agencies. We understand that the MTA took issue with the way the comptroller's report looked at the 20-year needs assessment and the way the project completions are categorized, but regular riders and many other stakeholders don't know the difference, and that's why plain speak is so important. It's hard to tell if Sandy repair and resiliency improvements were completed and what hasn't been started yet. A better and more transparent capital program dashboard is crucial to making sure that riders, advocates, and all stakeholders can hold the MTA accountable. We should be able to easily see what projects are being funded, their costs and timelines, progress updates along the way, and most importantly, how they'll benefit riders. And while the means for evaluating capital program progress may be outdated, this is even more reason to release a robust and well-informed 20-year needs assessment that will stand the test of time and address evolving needs. The longer projects are delayed, the more they cost, and that's without factoring in multiple once-in-a-century extreme weather events every year. With an influx of federal infrastructure funding, now is the time to make these critical investments. We and future generations of riders cannot afford to wait any longer. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes speakers.
Thank you. Thank you to the public speakers, as always. Copies of the November 2021 CPOC meeting minutes have been distributed and are available on the website. Are there changes or comments to the minutes, Mr. Alfred?
Just one correction on page 16. It says the project team is identified. It should say has identified. With that, I'm happy to move them.
I appreciate the motion. I'll take a second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, with the motion, the minutes are approved. Mr. Savio, any changes to the work plan?
Yes, we have one change to the work plan. Omni reporting scheduled this month has been moved into January to make room because of today's very full agenda. I also note that December reporting on security projects has been provided to committee members in advance of today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now turn to the committee business. I want to say, by way of introduction, we don't generally respond to the public comments, but the 20-year needs assessment will be the subject of some examination next month, correct? So that the process, where we are in that process, will be updated to the board. It's something we've been working on very diligently, so I just wanted to make that note. This is I'm going to say this probably more than once. This is an extraordinary board meeting that we're in the middle of. We are approving the budget, the financial plan. We are acting on the fair strategies that are being proposed. We're taking action on the Bronx bus redesign, one of the major steps forward for our bus agenda. And tomorrow, and on Wednesday, we're going to hear from the leaders of our bus program, which I think is the centerpiece of equity in our transit system, or at least an opportunity to address issues of equity. We're moving on many different procurements. And one of those that is going to be the subject of action on Wednesday, which hasn't yet the materials haven't yet found its way into the board's book, is about the Penn Access Project. Today, I participated with Senator Schumer in an announcement that there's been an agreement reached with Amtrak, and that the Penn Access, the Metro North to Penn Access Project, which will convert the Hellgate line into a 4-track railroad that will accommodate, instead of the 20-odd trains a day it's accommodating now, Amtrak trains 150 trains a day, the vast majority of the Metro North trains, is that long-discussed project is moving forward, and there's a contract that's ready for board approval on it. So it's a pretty exciting moment for all of us. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my successor at MTA C&D, Mr. Torres Springer, to get into some update on the capital program more broadly.
Thank you very much, Chair Lieber. I'm happy to be with you today. I want to say this is my second board meeting, or my second set of board committee meetings, although my first one was on my first day here at MTA, so I feel a little more situated here. And I'm very excited to be working with construction and development staff to build on all of the work that you did to create this new capital agency for the MTA. Better, faster, cheaper was your mantra, and it certainly will be mine too. And I plan to work aggressively to put the tools and systems in place that will continue to achieve those goals. As you mentioned, we have much progress to report this month, especially when it comes to improving station accessibility in the subway system, in addition to the Penn Station Access project. We will be back with a full assessment of 2021 next month to this committee, as well as mentioned an update on our 20-year needs assessment process. I also want to note for the board members that the commitments and completions and traffic light reports are in your committee book for this meeting. Just one more word before we get into the updates on Penn Station Access, which we've been working hard on advancing. And as you know, we'll bring Metro North service to Penn and add 4 stations in the East Bronx. It's really a game changer for the Bronx. And also Metro North customers in Westchester and Connecticut, who will have direct access to the west side, saving up to 40 minutes per day. Construction and Development has been working to wrap up the procurement, which will be before the board at Wednesday's meeting. And that also, as you mentioned, Chair Lieber, includes hammering out a deal with Amtrak, since much of this project is on their existing right-of-way and involves Amtrak infrastructure. Senator Schumer has been driving the effort to get a deal in place, and I understand you were there for an announcement today of all the details. So we'll be back to the board with full details on Wednesday. Starting with project completions over the last month. That's forward? Thank you. I thought it was that, but I'll try. We opened the new and improved accessible Carl Place LIR station on November 5th. That's the first station renovated and reopened as part of the LIR expansion project, which we'll be updating you on fully in a few minutes. And then, of course, opened the new Elmont UBS Arena station for eastbound service for the first Islanders home game on November 20th. That name was approved by the board last month, and the westbound platform will open next summer. We've completed 9 elevator replacements since the November board meeting at 181st Street, 1 station, the 190th Street A station, and Jamaica Center Parsons Archer station. Today we want to give you a focused update about station accessibility, which is a huge priority for all of us. As you know, the current capital plan makes an unprecedented investment in accessibility with 70 new stations and over $5 billion in investment. The MTA, we strongly believe, will be having the most important month in its history this month for making stations accessible to Americans with disabilities. We are seeking approval from the board to initiate improvements at 26 stations in total. You can see the new stations are on this map, and I'll go through them in a moment. And I just want to emphasize that we're using our new modernized approach to capital delivery to deploy every innovative tool at our disposal in creative ways to achieve ADA station improvements. While we've been using design, build, and bundling of projects extensively, we are seeking the board's approval this month to go to the market for a public-private partnership to deliver 13 stations for us, 8 newly accessible stations, 5 rehabilitations, through the Rapid Station Accessibility Upgrade Program. You can see the new stations within that program in the light blue dots on this map. This innovative approach has been used successfully elsewhere across the country and around the world, but is new for the MTA. We also might refer to it as design, build, finance, and maintain. It means we're engaging with a private partner who will be responsible for building the accessibility improvements quickly and at a lower cost, and who will also be on the hook to maintain the elevators for 15 years. Their payments will be entirely dependent on achieving a high standard of maintenance over that entire 15-year period. We expect that this strict contractual approach will yield very high outcomes for the quality of elevators in our stations. We're also seeking the board's approval to award design build contracts for 9 additional stations, including what you see as package 2 here in the red dots, a package of 8 stations, 6 of which are new. It's $251 million investment to be built through design build with a completion date of 2024. And for the 68th Street Hunter College station, that's a $105 million investment. This is very significant as it is the 100th station out of 100 stations that were identified as key, the original stations committed to for accessibility by the MTA. We forecast completion for that project 36 months from this month, the date of award. We also awarded a contract last week to make 3 stations on the L line on 14th Street fully accessible. The board approved that last month. We anticipate completion in 2024. We had our first approval under the Zoning for Accessibility program this month, where a development partner will build elevators at the 57th Street F station. You can see that on your right. That allows access to Central Park and Carnegie Hall, the critical station, and will reimburse, the developer will reimburse the MTA for the cost of maintenance. We're really pleased we were able to create this new zoning incentive with the Department of City Planning. That makes 26 stations moving forward just this month, 19 of which are newly accessible stations. It's on top of the 13 new accessible stations that are currently in construction, which will be completed in 2022 and 2023, and 3 station improvements that, as I mentioned, have been finished just this month. So in total, we're seeking moving on from accessibility, in total, we're seeking approval of 13 awards today. In addition to accessibility, I would also highlight our continued work on modernizing the signal system with a new equipment supplier and installer for communication-based train control on the Queens Boulevard East line, and the replacement of the Queens interlocking signal system for LIR. The last month has also been very active for construction and development on the commitment front. Our development and procurement teams have been and continue to be working very hard to get as many projects packaged and awarded as possible so that we can meet or exceed last year's $6.2 billion commitment number. This quarter, as you see on the left, we have already awarded 18 contracts for $129 million. And in this final stretch of these last couple weeks, we expect to award many more projects this month in December. I would also note that our small business mentoring program, which of course is an acknowledged leader in promoting MWBE participation in the world of public construction, and I intend to make that a priority of my time at C&D. We continue to make gains in this regard. This year, we've already awarded 44 contracts in this program for over $43 million in contracts. And again, the month of December is far from over from a commitment point of view. We expect to do a lot more in December, so we'll have results to report back next month. We'll get into this more next month when we give you a full update, but I also want to note that with all this work, we continue to see benefits in terms of value for money from the steps taken to improve capital delivery. As one measure of success, we're finding that our competitive bids are consistently meeting or under our estimates for those projects. We can say that so far this year, 70% of our final selected bids were below our estimated cost, which represents real savings for the capital program. And we're particularly pleased with our A+B contracting program, which we've used in addition to design build to incentivize contractors to finish work early and save the MTA cost for outages and force account support, as well as limiting impacts on our riders. So far this year, as you can see on the far right, we've saved 19% on these contracts versus our estimates, which amounts to over $230 million. It also amounts to a combined 196 months of construction duration saved as well, which is 9 months per project on average. So that's the update. And then, of course, in the work plan for CPOC this month, we're giving an update on 3 major integrated mega projects. And just before we get to the Penn Station Concourse project, we have a short video to highlight some of those.
Can I
some of that work.
interrupt to
Yes,
just
please.
like underscore one point, which is as part of this innovative public-private partnership for ADA, which has never been attempted before to our knowledge. As Jamie said, we are linking payment to the contractors to the success of making I have to get back in the habit of always doing the math. Sorry. That linking to the success of their ability to maintain availability. So unlike the couple of historical elevators which were built by real estate developers, and they had to put in an elevator because the city planning department said this is an improvement you must make. But once they did it, they got the zoning bonus, and we've sometimes had problems getting them to make the elevators available at all times. They're under the jurisdiction of the buildings department. That's bureaucracy, but it's the truth. In this case, we will be under the incentive and the requirement that the elevators be available to a very high standard and not broken is going to be something that we get to enforce, and that they will have specific financial incentives linked to. So it's very different than those couple of developer elevators, 53rd and 3rd, and a couple others that have given us headaches in the past, and I don't want that to be misunderstood. These are developers who are specifically incentivized, and all they're doing is building elevators for us. They're not building real estate. It's not the same. Okay, with that little friendly amendment, go ahead.
Thank you. So as I mentioned, we're going to start our Penn Station concourse update with a short video.
Penn Station is the largest transportation hub in the U.S. 3 commuter rail services, as well as 6 New York City Transit subway lines, all converge here in one complex. So whether you're commuting, visiting, headed to work, or just passing through, there's a good chance Penn is going to be the first thing you'll see when entering into New York City.
Over the years, the different operators, New Jersey Transit, Long Island Railroad and Amtrak started doing renovations on their own. So each carrier renovated their portion of the station, but there was no common solution for the station as a whole, and it became very confusing.
Today, there's a more concerted effort to improve Penn Station. The end of 2020 marked two major accomplishments as part of that plan: the opening of the massive Moynihan Train Hall and the opening of the East End Gateway. Now, the Long Island Railroad Concourse renovation is headed into its final year.
The 33rd Street Connecting Concourse and Long Island Railroad Concourse are projects that are going to create additional space for the customers. In order to do that, the key is to take some of the space that was previously used for back of house and retail to provide additional concourse space for customers.
You can get a sense here of how much more space there'll be when the project is completed in early 2023. The columns on the left are where the retail storefronts used to be. They'll now be along the right-hand side when they reopen, which will improve the width of the concourse by 30 feet. You can also get a sense of the new ceiling heights. Below this ceiling here is where you'll see a custom backlit illuminated ceilings to brighten the corridor and make it feel a bit more safe, comfortable, and allow for better circulation throughout the concourse.
The next major phase of this project is actually removing these head knockers from the concourse. That work is happening now. Transferring the load will happen later this month, and then early next year, we're going to actually start removing these pieces of steel.
In just over a year, all of this work will be completed, and then we can move into the next phase of the Penn Master Plan.
Right behind me, where the Madison Square Garden Bridge is now, will arise a new train hall with an enormous atrium and skylight going about 100 feet up. That will be the centerpiece of rethinking the entire station.
In order for us to start the redevelopment of Penn Station, we need to complete the Long Island Railroad Concourse project, which will give us the west and the north side of the station to move passengers and take advantage of the window that's going to be created when East Side Access opens and before Penn Station Access comes in. Then we can start working on building the Penn Station that New Yorkers really deserve.
Thanks. And we'll switch back to the presentation, and we'll invite Jolien Handler, our project executive, to give us an update on the concourse project.
Thank you, Jamie. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone this afternoon. Just to give folks an idea of the project itself, if you've been in Penn, you may have seen some of these banners that are up as part of our work. What we're trying to do is sort of build the map to how we redevelop Penn Station. It started with the West End Concourse opening in 2016, which allowed for boarding and alighting from the west end of the facility. Then at the end of 2020, we opened the Moynihan Train Hall and the East End Gateway, which obviously were very large achievements, as you saw in the video. And now we're working on the Long Island Railroad Concourse project. All of these really build us to the next phase of the project, which is the redevelopment of Penn Station. The East End Gateway created an iconic glass and steel entrance, and all of this was completed during the pandemic. And now the Long Island Railroad Concourse will widen the concourse from 30 to 57 feet. And in addition, will create fresh air, light, and new finishes throughout. Here's our schedule. Our contractual completion is March of 2023, but we are pushing to complete early at the end of 2022. We are on schedule and on budget. We were able to move some early work on the project from phase 2 into phase 1, so that we could jump ahead of some of the work during the pandemic and take advantage of periods of low ridership and when MSG was dark. So this is a before and after picture, which shows you the preconditions, crowded, cramped here on the left with the barreled arch ceiling and the future vision of the concourse. And this is all in the north end of the station, which really creates a different feel from what it was before.
So our major accomplishments really were we've completed the structural and the civil utility work part of the project. This is a view from the top of 2 Penn Plaza. On the right is 7th Avenue, and on the left is 8th Avenue. You see Madison Square Garden sort of peeking around the corner there. These utilities in the map down below all had to be relocated and put at a higher elevation so that we could create that space below. On the left, you see sort of what all that unused space for utilities was. There's a pretty deep utility box that we had to resize and bring up towards the sidewalk, and we were able to do that and then move all these utilities, which you can see is a significant amount of work just from this image. All of these existing utilities. Some of them actually had to be upsized. And here's our structure going in. And I think the picture on the right really shows the difference between what the head knockers, which we've termed those low pieces of steel, and the new concourse. So you really can get a difference, an idea of the difference in this image. And there's just another shot of that. So to add to Jamie's point on ADA, we've bundled 4 elevator rehabilitations as part of this project, 3 in the New York City Transit 123 station, as well as a 4th in the Platform 11 elevator. And then we're building a brand new ADA entrance from the street down into the station, and this is what it would look like at the street level and then at the station level, the concourse level. Additionally, we bundled in some state of good repair projects. We had an old non-functioning chiller plant that was under the 34th Street entrance, and we have now taken that out of service and put in new boilers. These were completed this month and ready for the heating season. So our biggest challenges in this project have really just continued to be working in our in an active train station, making sure that we keep the station moving and that passengers are protected. A lot of this work, the structural work that you see, happened by pulling out the street above and then reforming that street at a higher elevation. So all of that's happening as passengers are moving below. I think one of the things we're most proud of is that we've had minimal impact on train service. In addition, there are many significant stakeholders on the project. Amtrak obviously owns the station. We had city agencies involved, utility companies, and then our neighbors, Vornado and Madison Square Garden, are always have a stake and a say in the project. Looking ahead to the next year of the project, we are putting in all the MEP systems and all the services, and then above that, we'll put all the station finishes. On the left here, you can see a mock-up of the new luminous ceiling that was spoken about in the video. We got a mock-up of that in November, and it really is going to be a spectacular thing. So thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions if there are any.
Hey, Jano, it's Kevin. I have a question for Jolien.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Hey, Jolien, good to see you again. Thanks for the tour last month. Very impressive. The news that Jano shared with us today with Chuck Schumer, how does that factor into all the things you just shared with us? Is it relevant, or does it not, and does it help advance the schedule or, the project in some ways? Can you tie that in?
Sure. I'll take a crack. The key point, Kevin, is the one that Peter Matusevich made in the video, which is that there is the project, the Penn Access project, which will allow Metro North to come into Penn Station to to fill in some of those slots that Long Island Railroad will be leaving behind when a significant chunk of Long Island Railroad customers go across town to East Side Access. That creates a window between the end of 22, when we open East Side Access, till about 4 years later, when Metro North comes into Penn, that we want to use that window to get existing Penn, the heavy construction in existing Penn done, when we have fewer, when we have the fewest possible riders, dependent on Penn. So that's why we call it the window of opportunity to get the heavy work, structural work that will be necessary to change existing Penn from what it is today to what the governor has laid out it can and should be in the future. Does that respond to your question, Kevin?
Yeah, thanks, Jenna.
I'll just jump in. I don't know if you can see my hand. Is Neil. What an impressive presentation. I look forward to that one day happening. Your visuals seem inspiring and very in keeping with the billions of investment for the Long Island Railroad rider and for the region in general. I had a minor question, but you piqued my interest when you showed that particularly unpleasant concourse with the semicircular roof. You mentioned that the 30 feet of width is coming from removal of back of house functions or activities or space. Could you just give us some examples of what those were and where they are going, or if they're just disappearing in general, what that space was used for? I'm always interested to understand how we've changed in our need for space.
Sure, happy to do that. A majority of the space was more retail because on the north side of that corridor, you had the retail storefronts. Those are primarily moving back, which creates the 27 feet. In addition, there were some overhangs, which were Amtrak back of house space that included storage and kitchen space that have now been relocated within the station.
But Neil, just so you're clear, Neil,
what had been there before, I guess, is all I'm asking.
But Neil, we made a deal. The first step was we made a deal with Vornado that they would pull back by that roughly 30 feet. Then Amtrak, we had a lease entitlement to get Amtrak out of that space that they were occupying for kitchens, which was on our level, and we took advantage of that. And then in addition, Jolien, what other back of house space was jettisoned or moved? What was it?
It was primarily the Amtrak kitchen space that was back of house. There was also some storage up there. It wasn't entirely just kitchens. It was mostly storage space and kitchen space.
Very creative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions, if any? All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Jolien. So we have two more updates today, East Side Access and the Long Island Railroad Expansion Project. We'll move on to the East Side Access update with our project executive, Rob Troop. And I'll just mention that for both of these projects, we have reports from our independent engineering consultant. So I believe Joe DeVito will follow Rob's presentation with his presentation or his report on East Side Access.
Thank you, Jamie. So good afternoon. The MTA East Side Access, MTA CD East Side Access team and our Long Island Railroad partner are real pleased we're making steady progress to deliver this truly transformative project to the region. As you may recall, we bifurcated the delivery of the track systems and the concourse. And the reason we did this was because the longest non-construction pre-revenue activity is the physical characteristics training of the Long Island Railroad train and engine crews. Physical characteristics are an FRA requirement for the engineers to have stick time to familiarize themselves with the territory and train handling. Finishing the concourse, however, has been a challenge due to slow progress by our CMO 14B contractor and rework that is required for the escalators. We have come a long way, though. Here's the Q-tip excavation where we launched the tunnel boring machines that daylighted into Herald interlocking. And here's the same area now with a fully functional midday storage yard, which is where the trains and crews will be staged. This slide is 150 feet below Grand Central Terminal, and this is the same area now with the platforms and mezzanine and track constructed. As we close in on revenue service, we have completed some major work elements, particularly on the track. These include traction power, the signal system, and the track. The information on this slide does concern me, though. A note that we have consumed nearly all of our scheduled contingency to a December 2022 revenue service date. The ESA team is working to mitigate this scheduled consumption and recover float. The specific steps we are taking include We're realigning the contractor's testing activities to ensure functional pre-testing is being done efficiently as possible. And we've established commingled test teams with multiple contractors, mainly TPC and GCTC. This will flush out issues early and allow the integrated testing to be performed at a faster pace. We have directed the contractors to establish a second test crew working 10-hour days and 6 days a week. This is the most critical element of making schedule and recovering float. A third testing crew and a construction management crew to be a scout team will identify issues early with assets. I do want to note that the Long Island Railroad Fire Marshals assigned to the program have been very helpful in witness testing and identifying issues early prior to the final integrated testing. As we review the overall program, I want to make note that this is akin to like a three-dimensional chess game where each contract and contractors is dependent upon elements of the other. This is not simply a linear construction environment. The platform and mezzanine, in regards to the station and the concourse, the platform and mezzanine require only architectural finishes to be completed. And I do want to note that the terrazzo epoxy has been limited due to COVID, with the contractor only being able to receive certain allotments. GCT is pre-testing systems in the concourse, but deficiency of assets, a functioning chiller, Biltmore, and coordinating testing is creating issues. Right now, this remains my biggest concern for completion of the program. GCTC has made changes to the contractor's executive staff, and this has shown early promise. The chiller control system has been revised, and we're expected to complete those revisions Wednesday. And additionally, as I said before, the contractor has been directed and has agreed to testing 2 shifts, 6 days a week. The Biltmore escalator connections require removal of Metro North electrical equipment upstairs. Schneider Electric has provided deficient material and are late in correcting the delivery of that material. We expect that to be completed this week. The CMO 30 contract is a station enhancement contract which was recently awarded to create a dynamic 21st century environment in the concourse. Moving to the track systems, there have been issues with corrosion on fan bearings, but we have an agreed fix which will be completed by end of January. The track integrated test is moving quickly as expected at the end of the year, which will allow physical characteristics to continue. Tudor Perini is the last contractor standing and is critical to achieving the end date. I do have commitment from their executive leadership that they will support MTA in achieving that goal. The traction power system within the tunnel is complete from a construction's testing standpoint, and we're in the process of getting all the final documentation ready. I do want to publicly acknowledge to the board how cooperative and productive Con Edison has been, particularly during this holiday season. We've been able to, within the past 4 months, to get all but one of our power substations energized with at least 2 feeders. Signal system will be tested complete by the end of the year. However, positive train control, which was not part of the original contract, will be completed and ready for testing by the end of the year. Our midday storage yard, which you saw a photograph of earlier, is nearing completion. IDA created some issues with a DEP sewer siphon being clogged and the yard not draining properly. We are currently in talks with DEP over responsibility for cleaning that siphon. CHO 63 is a regional improvement and it's not required for regional revenue service. This includes catenary contracted construction. We have concerns that remain around Amtrak's ability to support with flaggers and qualified foremen, as well as design submittals. Amtrak is working closely with the program team to mitigate and to respond with appropriate personnel. Even when construction and testing is completed, there is still work involved to get to revenue service. The Long Island Railroad Operational Readiness Team has been working cooperatively with the East Side Access Project Team, and these entities are pushing toward the programmed revenue service state. Thank you, and I'd be willing to entertain any questions.
Okay. There was a little more technical detail in that than we normally provide, but I think the bottom line that you're hearing is the team is fighting their way, and this is the truth. The team is fighting their way to that 2022 revenue service date, and Rob is being very transparent about some of the serious challenges, mostly in the testing category, right? That's where the biggest critical path challenges are. But Joe DeVito is now going to tell us more about that.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The IC is reporting on two integrated projects, as stated earlier. Our report on the East Side Access Project begins on page 19 of your CPOC book. Overall, the East Side Access Project remains on budget and on schedule. Our analysis verifies that the budget of $11.1 billion with allocated and unallocated contingencies remains sufficient to complete the work required to enter revenue service as now planned. Also, the IEC concurs with the project that the revenue service in December 2022 is still achievable. Systems testing, which has previously been reported as a concern by the IEC, remains critical to the success of the program. Contractor performance, quality issues, and change order work have impacted the testing schedule, resulting in the consumption of schedule contingency. This has caused the completion of remaining concourse and facility system testing to move to August of 22 from the contractual date of June 22. Operational readiness activities have advanced significantly and are expected to continue to the end of the project. The completion of the track, traction power, and signal systems in December of 21, along with the award of an interim contract or contracts for the maintenance of these assets, enables the Long Island Railroad to commence physical characteristics training on the East Side Access right-of-way. While the project team is working closely with the contractors to address outstanding issues and increase productivity for the remaining testing work, the IEC finds the major schedule risk being that if any further delay to this work is not mitigated, it may compress the critical 3-month period necessary for MTA and the Long Island Railroad to take over the systems required to begin revenue service. Close coordination is ongoing between the project team, the Long Island Railroad, and the FRA to ensure a safe, smooth transition from construction completion to operational readiness to the start of service. And that concludes my report on East Side Access.
Joe, do you have another report you want to give on the prior project, or are we moving on?
We're not reporting on the Penn Station
Go ahead.
concourse yet.
Go ahead.
Just to see if any questions or comments from board members related to East Side Access. Thank you. Then we'll move on to Anthony Trufano, our project executive for the LIR expansion project, or third track.
Hi. So the project remains trending under budget, although we're 80% complete at this time. The schedule remains intact to deliver fourth quarter revenue service on the third track, and we're holding our April 23 project completion date. All the project elements remain on schedule, with the exception of Denton Avenue Bridge, which is in current pending litigation with Garden City. We have an alternative plan to protect the schedule, and that's a temporary bridge in the event we need to trigger that if the litigation doesn't go our way. So at 2021 milestones achieved, we closed Main Street grade crossing. We opened our ADA elevators at Floor Park Station. We eliminated 2 grade crossings at Willis Avenue and opened them to the public. We opened the Westbury North parking garage, the Mineola Harrison parking garage, and cut the ribbon on Call Place. To date on the project, all 8 of our grade crossings have been eliminated. 6 of 7 of our bridges have been remodeled and replaced, except Denton Avenue. And really, at this point in the project, now that the civil work is really completed, we're transitioning into a track and systems project. I'm happy to report 37% of our third track is laid, which lines up right in line with our in-service date at the end of 2022. In addition, we had other achievements. NASA 1 interlocking was cut over. 79% of our right-of-way utilities have been installed. 1 substation is online, 4 are currently being commissioned, and 2 are in fabrication getting ready for delivery. And over 88% of our retaining and sound wall have been achieved. I really have to say, through the COVID pandemic, our partnership with the Long Island Railroad, their workforce, and the integration with the Long Island Railroad workforce and the third-party contractors workforce it's been terrific. That's why we're able to achieve this aggressive schedule. Looking forward to 2022, we're going to complete all of our remaining stations, complete all of our remaining sound attenuation wall and retaining walls, cut over our 5 remaining interlockings, our comm and signal systems, our traction power systems, and replace that bridge at Denton Avenue. And then at the end of the year, we'll be running that new third track to align with the other mega projects that are connected to it. Our risks on the project. Next year is very aggressive. There's tremendous operational impacts to these cutovers. It's a lot of systems cutovers. We are very confident we're going to meet those dates through our interaction and coordination with the Long Island Railroad. We're lined up with the contractor, their subcontractors to deliver this project as we did all the other elements for the last 3 years. And really the biggest risk right now is Denton Avenue. Although we have a temporary bridge option that we will trigger in the event our hearing this Wednesday does not go in our favor. But we're ready to trigger that option, which will drive up costs, but it'll protect the overall project schedule for the project and deliver service at the end of this year. That concludes my report. I'll take any questions at this time.
On that, the last slide that you just showed, oh, I'm sorry, the last slide you showed, so this temporary $50 million replacement bridge, so everything stays in place as we see it, like, it seems to be like a single lane tunnel going through, or?
It'll be a single bay bridge in front of that old bridge.
And so then, all right, so then when you eventually decide the settlement, then everything gets removed?
Everything will be replaced at a later date because that bridge is beyond its useful life.
But Randy, the key point is there's a $50 million premium if we have to, because of this litigation, we have to do this in 2 stages and come back and do it again. That's not the right outcome from the public.
I know, I saw that, yeah.
And we're counting on the court system which has said again and again that we are within our rights and that it's improper for the permit to be withheld. We're counting on that to enable us to move the project forward.
It would be great.
There's a hearing next week.
Yeah, we didn't have to spend that. I understand that. Thank you.
Hey, Jano, it's Kevin again.
There's a hearing next week.
The hearing is actually Wednesday the 15th this week.
Wednesday
and
the
we'll hear.
15th, this week. There we go. Kevin, go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Jano. Great job. Very impressive, update. I know I've asked you this before, Jano, but just because sometimes I need to hear it twice, can you explain the difference between our goals to have in service by the end of 2022 and then the slide that says substantial completion by April 2023?
So substantial completion is a term of art in contractual terms, which does not prevent, it means that certain specific levels of completion have been achieved for all systems. We can put the project into use to start to receive the benefit of the third track and all the other systems that have been installed and of using the new stations and in advance of the technical achievement of substantial completion by the contractor. Anthony, do you want to provide more detail on that?
Yeah, it's just completion of punch list items, some cleanup and things like that. There's around 6 months after we go in service that the contractor will still be active on the site, cleaning things up, buttoning them up, correcting all the punch list items, and finally completing all construction in the field.
Got it. So the goal of still trying to have third track in service as we open up East Side access by the end of next year, that's still our goal and hope.
Yes, it is.
We are all lined up.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you. Nice to hear.
Board Member Brown.
Yeah, who's wasted more of your time, Amtrak or the Mayor of Garden City?
I'm going to take the fifth on that one. I'm taking the fifth. All right, next up, but prescient question, as always, from Board Member Brown. Other material?
Over to you, Mr. DeVito.
Thank you. Our report on the Long Island Railroad expansion project begins on page 25 of your CPOC book. Overall, as mentioned, this project, which is 80% complete, is on schedule and within budget. Regarding the schedule, the ISC has performed a review, and it's our opinion that substantial completion for major construction is achievable in April 23 as planned. Since our last report in May of 21, the project has made notable progress on project milestones such as the completion of the contract's final grade crossing eliminations, turnover of the Westbury and Harrison garages to their respective towns, and the elimination of Old Nassau Tower. With respect to budget, While project costs are within budget and major project risks remain, the IEC finds there is sufficient monies to complete the project at the current estimated completion of $2.6 billion as currently planned. Top risks, as Anthony mentioned earlier, completion of work within the 2022 scheduled weekend outages, completion of the new Nassau 3 and Divide 1 interlocking cutovers, delay in the issuance of permits that will impact the construction of the new Denton Avenue Bridge. In our opinion, the mitigations by the project management team for these risks are adequate. However, we recommend a risk assessment be performed to evaluate and forecast risk exposure for the remaining work. And that concludes our remarks.
Just a gloss on the information I shared about the Penn Access project. Among other things that we're funding, the Penn Access project is $100 million of unspent contingency on third track. It's a sign that the mega project that this team, the new C&D team, started and is delivering is achieving all of our goals, which is to save some money. Yeah.
Does your agreement that was announced today with Amtrak talk about funding rehabilitation of the Pelham Bridge?
No. We have agreed with Amtrak that is a discussion that ought to happen closer to when the bridge needs to be replaced, which is 15 plus years from now. So there was an agreement that that's not appropriately within the scope of this railroad project. Okay, Mr. Mulligan, is there any report on capital program status that you care to share with us?
No, the materials are in the book. We, the outlook looks considerably better than it did a month ago. So we're forecasting for commitments 89% of our goal. That includes some of the known outside projects, but with today's developments, that performance could well increase.
Further questions from the committee? Is there a report, a traffic light report that needs to be delivered? Anybody? Nope. Okay, it's in the book. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Thank you all.
Thank you.